Good evening and welcome to the Whisky Lovers Society with me, Gert Retief, and tonight we are looking at the Port Charlotte MRC 01 of 2010. It is a 7-year-old single malt from the Isla region. It is distilled by the Brochladi distillery. It is a bottle series called the Cask Exploration series. This is a 2010 vintage, bottled in 2018. And the cask type is first fill American cask and second fill French Bordeaux wine cask, and then they have a final maturation or marriage in a French oak cask. Number of bottles produced 8,000, cask strength at 59.2% ABV, and if you do a little bit of digging, you can still find it here in Belgium at my online store. You can still get it for 125 euros for the bottle. So definitely not a cheap one, but quite looking forward to nosing and tasting it. I've done some previous reviews on Port Charlotte. Absolutely fantastic. So on to tonight's whiskey. Color-wise, a lovely dark amber color. Now, I didn't do a lot of research on this one before I start the review. As you know, I don't want to taint my opinion by accidentally seeing what somebody else think about it, what their nosing and tasting notes are. I would presume this is a unchill filtered, and color-wise, I'm not 100% sure. From what I can remember, they don't add any color, but of course I will do some research after the review, and if I do add coloring, I will just mention it somewhere over here that you can also know that details. Color wise, I do like the color, nice amber color, not particularly dark, but quite dark for a 7-year-old whiskey. So quite a lot of color came from somewhere. So either it's natural color or they added some color, but I will give you that details as well. So on the nose, it is absolutely fantastic on the nose. What I do get on the nose is a lovely dusty, hinty, peaty, very fruity nose. So not a big peated one. I'm not sure about the parts per million on the phenols, but I don't think it is very high. Probably for me about in the 20s, maybe 25. Not 100% sure, but if I have that information, I will also add that. But it is lightly peated, more sweet than anything else. First thing that I do get is a little bit of a, we have some cherries here in Belgium. I'm not sure where they come from, but this big fat black, almost black cherries that you get with a hint of a sour note. I get that on the nose. I also get a little bit of a prunes, and I also get a little bit of a strawberry note on it. So if you give it a little bit of an agitation, you do get that little bit of that youthful note coming out. A little bit of a nail polish remover, or a little bit of a paint thinner. And for some reason, and this is the first time that I've picked it up, not always I get a hint of a chlorine, and I'm not sure where it comes from. You know, sometimes when you walk past a swimming pool and you just get that hint of a chlorine in the air. Not every time, but if I just pass my nose through the glass, I get sometimes a hint of that chlorine coming out. Not offensive actually. Also I pick up a hint of a chocolate note. Maybe not a very dark chocolate, a light sweet chocolate note. I also get a little bit of a toasted caramel, almonds. I also almost something like a peanut pie smell coming out, a nice fresh out of the oven peanut pie. It is really nice, inviting and sweet, absolutely fantastic. It reminds me so much of a sherried peated whiskey. Of course, this is only some red wine or some wine casks from Bordeaux region. And I would presume it is red wine, maybe also that is where the color comes from. So the peat, definitely not a peat monster. For me, it is actually just a perfect amount of peat in it. And as you know, in the last couple of months, I've become a real peat head. When I do a little bit of an agitation, that the chocolate note becomes a little bit of a dark chocolate note as well. And for the smoke itself, that's definitely not a medicinal smoke. It is not an iodine hospital TCP type of smoke. It's more like a little bit of a distance bonfire, or maybe a ashy note, a fire that was died last night, and the morning, that ashy note that you get when you stick your nose too close to that X fire. I actually really like it. It is high on ABV, 59.2% ABV, so I'm definitely going to take a very small sip, give it a try, and of course add a little bit of water to see the difference between the both ways of drinking the whiskey. So without water, cheers. Be careful, it's hot, it's warm, it's a little spicy note coming out, but it is sweet. It is, I think this is one of the sweetest whiskies that I've had in quite a long time. Even the Sherry Monsters, this can hold itself up against all the Sherry Monsters that I've tried. So a lot of sweetness, very little oak. On sip 1, let me just want to make sure, sometimes there can be a little bit of an oak build up every time you go back. On this one, almost no oak. So I expect that a little bit. It's only 7 years old, so there's not a lot of oak, and I think it's also a good cask management. So on sip 2, definitely not a lot of oak on it, maybe just a hint. That warm sweetness is still there, that little bit of a chilly effect of it, that evaporating of the alcohol, high ABV, really, really nice. Also pick up a little bit of a dusty note, and maybe a little bit of a vanilla coming out. Also get a little bit of a caramel coming out. Very much like sherry for me. All that lovely fruity notes, except I don't think there's that spicy, the cinnamon spice and the peppery spice, that is definitely absent in this one. So quite fruity and quite hot. So I'm going to add a little bit of water to it, but I will be very careful with adding water to this one. I do not want to put a lot of water in it. So I did bring my trusty little bottle of water. I think there's maybe about 35 milliliters still left. A sample bottle like this is 50 mils. So I'm not going to add a little bit. I'm going to again 1.5 teaspoons. Maybe I should bring a spoon the next time, but I try to add some water and not just keep on guessing. But as you've seen, it was not a lot of water. So with the water added and a little bit of a undignified shaky, it is definitely more sweeter. I didn't think that was possible, but definitely that little acetone nail polish remover is definitely toned down, and you get that more elevated sweetness, more of that fruity notes, that dried fruit notes, that cherry notes, that plums, that toffee, a deep, dark, rich toffee. Maybe also a little bit like a furniture polish, a little bit of a leather note coming out, a polished leather note. It also reminds me a little bit of instant coffee, the granules. If you open up a bottle of instant coffee, not stick your nose in it, but just that hint when you open up the instant coffee, that little bit of a coffee note coming out. A little bit of a toast, buttered toast, caramel definitely, and then That peat definitely takes a little bit of a backseat for me. So definitely tone down on the peat level as well. So with a little bit of water added on the taste, cheers. I can definitely add some more water. Less of a bite, a little less of a heat, a little less of the chilliness, and a little less of that evaporation, but that burst of all these lovely flavors, the dried fruit flavors coming out, the caramels coming out, the vanillas coming out, the sweetness coming out, the chocolate, a nice chocolatey note coming out. This takes water absolutely fantastic. But again, be careful. Don't try to put too much water. Teaspoon by teaspoon, drop by drop, until you find it's perfect. And when you do add your water, just give it a couple of seconds, couple of minutes, not like me just throwing it in, do the shaky. Give it some time so that it can just mingle with the whiskey before you start drinking it. Give it some time, give it a nice nose. A little bit of an oak now. Let me just make sure. It's definitely a little bit of an oak for me now, but it's still, it is like a hint of an oak, a hint of an espresso note, and I think that is perfect just to balance out that sweetness of the whiskey. It does have a Bordeaux wine cask finish. Now, if you told me that this is some wine influence, I'm not sure I would have guessed it in a blind tasting. I would venture more into a sherry cask, even a little bit of a port cask, well, even a little bit of a Pedro Ximénez cask, because of the sweetness of this whiskey. Absolutely fantastic, but definitely I can add some more water to this one, especially with the agitation. If you stick your nose in it, you get that alcohol bite still. So I think there's room for at least maybe 1 or 2 teaspoons of water to calm it a little bit down. But I do like my whiskey on a high ABV. So I'm not going to ruin it. Up to you. When you buy a bottle, leave a comment. Tell me what do you think. How much water did you add to the whiskey to get it in the perfect consistency? For me, after this review, I'm going to sit back, do some editing, and I'm going to enjoy this whiskey the way it's meant to be. Nice, long, slow sips. Absolutely fantastic. So, finish-wise, it is just absolutely a fantastic long finish. You have that sweetness, you've got the dry fruit, the prunes, maybe a little bit of an apricot coming out. The peat is there, the caramels is there, the sweetness is there, the hint of that smoke is there, the hint of the oak is there. Really nice. Absolutely something that I would tell anybody that wants to start off and experiencing some peated whiskey. I think this one is also going on my list. Now, I did a review of the Octomore 6.1, love it. I want it on my bar. I did the 8.1. That 8.1 was so fantastic. I really liked it. I will also put the link maybe at the end as an end card or somewhere during the video with all the other reviews that I've made. And of course, I can't really forget the 15-year-old Talisker, the 2019 edition. That was also fantastic. So those 3 definitely is going to be, well, definitely have to find their way onto my bar here at the back. Maybe if my wife watches, she can buy it for me for my birthday or for Christmas or for the next 5 years Christmases. That will be a good gift from her. So absolutely a fantastic drab. I love it. I really enjoy it. Let me know what you think. If you watch this far, I think it's a good idea to subscribe. If you have subscribed already, thank you very much. Remember to leave a comment. Tell me about your experience with Port Charlotte. Maybe there is some other expressions that you would like me to taste and review in the future. And I see you next time. Cheers.